The honeymoon's over. I want to talk about the Luiton LT310 SDR in a mobile situation. But first, I would say that this radio, in my humble opinion, is not ready for prime time. Man, it's like 97 out here today, and it's hot out here, so I may lose it. Just bear with me. All right, that being said, I don't mind this radio really on the bass. I think the receive selectivity is, decent for a modern radio. I didn't like the, in air quotes, AI circuitry, or the NRC, just basically the DSP, the noise reduction circuitry in here. It's too much for me. My ears, I hear an analog, and that's the sound I like. But I don't really honestly expect much from a radio at A, this price point, and B, this size. What I mean by the honeymoon is over, when I got this radio back a few weeks back and I unboxed it, I was just blown away by the size. I'm just like, oh my God, this is so freaking cool. And again, I still think it is. It's pretty cool. There's no doubt about it. But the quirks of the radio, I think they just need to be worked out. And from what I understand, Luiton is working these quirks out on this board. This is board version 1.6, and this is a new version. But that whole volume thing, where the volumes, at the first click, it's just too darn high. I've got it now set with the software. I did a video on that, so you're gonna have to look at that to where it's not. And I'm using this on a external speaker. Yeah, see that? I don't like that. That's probably the one. This is probably the one thing. Let me turn this thing down. By the way, when you turn the volume down in the software to where number one is quiet and not so doggone loud, you lose the top end volume, right? So it slides down as far as like the adjustment goes. So like if you have it up high, where it's at like settings 1 and 2, it's going to be high on the top end. When you turn it down, it's low on the top end, which doesn't really make sense, but that's just the way the logic of this particular rig is, apparently. So anyway, I've adapted to that with my external speaker. Can I hear this well with my windows rolled down, 45, 55 miles an hour? Not so much. But I can work around these things, because I can just, like I did here, put the external speaker up here. I took it out of my normal spot and I just put it up here on the console. But this is what gets me, and this is why I don't recommend this for a mobile application, because you just reach down to do anything and like you change channels. I would have rather have this been the volume control and then push for the channels, but it's bass backwards. Okay, so they've got quick key. So they've got it here where you're changing channels, and you just touch this, and I'm just telling you, at a stoplight, or if you're driving down the road trying to adjust something, you hit this all the time, and I end up on some other channel, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I've got to look down and go through this again. I would prefer to see the volume control on this master control here, and then push down for channels. Okay, so I think that's probably my biggest complaint for running this thing in the mobile. Now, I like the menu functions on here. I actually like those a lot. I like how you can go between all the menu functions. I like how easy it is to lock and unlock. The SRF meter on here is absolutely worthless. So if you're a meter reader like I am, compulsive meter reader, you're not going to probably like that, but it is what it is. So I think for now, this is going to be my final video on this radio. I'm going to take it out. It's made it almost 5 days. It's just unbearable for me to run anymore. Because of that whole volume channel selector thing. I'm not a fan of that. Now, the RJ12 mic connector is probably one of my favorites. I like this. I like what they did with this. This is a nice setup, and you know me, you guys, I'm not an RJ anything fan. The microphone works very well. However, you can always tell when you're listening to somebody on the Luiton because they have this sort of boxy sound, kind of like they've got a little bit of a cardboard box effect to their audio. And I'm going to assume that's the DSP logic and whatever in here. Again, I'm not a technician. I'm not an electronics expert, just a hobbyist of, you know, a few decades, like 5. But anyway, we won't talk about that. I think this would be a great radio for a little man pack radio, something like that, or a little emergency setup. You know, little emergency tackle, or well, not a tackle box, but a little like ammo box setup or something, right? I think it would be great. The adjacent channel rejection on here seems to be pretty good. I was very happy with that, considering, you know, what this thing is. The build quality, honestly, I don't think is that bad. You know, they just have a few quirks they got to work out. It's just, can I say this? This is a sexy looking radio. Now, I like the TYT version of this where they actually have an inner and an outer rotary knob. I like that version. I'd love to get my hands on one of those and try that. But yeah, this just, if this was volume, I'm okay with that. Because, you know, I could just think, oh crap, okay, whatever. But no, it's not. So anyway, there you go. My take on the Luiton LT310 SDR is, if you got $129 and change to just experiment with, fine. Is this going to be your main radio? In my humble opinion, probably not. Again, this would be a little man pack radio or a backup radio. And actually the receiver kind of reminds me of the old school walkie-talkies and VHF and even CB walkie-talkies. You know, these things were designed, well, back then, those were designed to run on a little unity gain or no gain antenna. They worked fine. Of course, then you put them on a big antenna, there's too much noise, there's too much stuff going on because they weren't designed to be on, like, you know, a base station antenna, right? So you guys that have experienced this know what I'm talking about, especially with like the old school 80s I don't know, like Yaesu FT411 handy talkie or something like that, or a 470. They're great on rubber ducks and all that. They're great on a mobile antenna, but you put them on a base and the receiver's just not good. So I'm kind of leaning to that thought with this as far as like purity goes. I think maybe a little portable, little emergency, or a parks on the air station. This would make a great little mini QRP parks on the air station for you 10-meter guys. So yeah, that's that for now. Will you see this radio in an upcoming video again? I don't know, maybe. We're just going to see what happens with software, and I'll get some more time to play around with this thing and fill you guys back in. But, you know, for $129, you know, you're going to get what you pay for. You know, I had a commenter say, well, you know, you're not paying a lot of money for it. What do you expect? You know, well, I get that thoroughly, but I would expect things to be a little bit more fine-tuned. A little, some of the roughness around the edges filed down a little bit. How about that? So anyway, there you go. Luiton knows about some of these little quirks and issues with this. And it just seems like, in my opinion, and I don't really know, I'm not really up on the European, Chinese, Malaysian type side of things, I guess, but it would have been nice if they worked some of these quirks out. And I would have paid $139 if they were worked out, right? So anyway, there you go.